The most expensive weapons system in history is about to get more expensive. A new analysis from the Government Accountability Office suggests the F-35 aircraft could wind up costing more to operate than the services say they can afford. Diana Maurer is Director of Defense Capabilities and Management Issues, GAO. Diana, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. I calculate that we're only about 16% into this program as far as the number of planes that are actually existing. What do we know about the cost growth of this program and where that growth is coming from, Diana?
Well, thanks, Francis. It's great to be on the show again. And so what we know is that from day one, we've known that this is going to be an expensive aircraft, and that's in part because it has such amazing capabilities, it's so sophisticated, and it's so complex. Our concern from the GAO is that the sustainment cost growth has been moving in the wrong direction. Sustainment costs have been increasing over time rather than decreasing, which is what you would hope for and what you would expect. And what that means is we now have a situation where the three services who are purchasing and using the aircraft, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marine Corps, are in a situation where they cannot afford to fly the number of planes that they plan to buy.
This is maybe the most striking passage from your work, in my view, Diana. In my opinion, the services will collectively be confronted with tens of billions of dollars in sustainment costs that they project as unaffordable during the program. The services are essentially saying, we can't buy this plane according to our own measures. What are the measures that they're using to come to that conclusion, Diana?
So each of the services back in 2018 developed what they called affordability constraints, which is they looked at all of their budgets, they looked at what they plan to spend on the F-35 as well as all their other competing priorities and determined this is how much we can afford to spend for every F-35 per year. And those are their affordability targets. What we did is we took those targets and compared them to what the projected costs will be to fly and operate the F-35. And what we found was that there are significant affordability gaps. In the case of the Air Force, the projected costs are 47% higher than what the Air Force says it can afford.
So to that point, you write this: the Air Force needs to reduce estimated costs, as you just said, per tail per year by $3.7 million by 2036. That's per year. Or it will incur $4.4 billion in costs beyond what it currently projects it could afford in that year alone. Is there any precedent that we've seen in an organization in the department able to do that with sustainment costs, or is that projection requiring the force to do something that's never been done before?
We looked into that, at least for aviation systems, that there really aren't any precedents for that. By the time an aircraft has been developed and built, and in the case of the F-35, we're talking, 400 and plus that are already in service in the U.S. military. The sustainment costs are largely, but not entirely, baked into the system. So it's going to be very, very difficult to close that 47% gap. I mean, to use one example, if for some reason the contractors decided out of the goodness of their heart to provide free spare parts for the life of the program, it would still not close that affordability gap for the Air Force. And they're not going to do that, nor should they.
Recommendations here include the following. The first, requiring DOD to report annually to Congress on progress in achieving the affordability constraints. And secondly, making procurement decisions on the plane contingent on DOD's progress in achieving these constraints. It sounds like you're saying Congress might consider not buying more of these if the price can't come down. Am I reading too much into what you're writing there, Diana?
That is certainly one of the possible policy options that we've teed up for Congress, right? I mean, we're talking about affordability, and there are two parts of that. That's how much something costs and how much you're willing to pay, right? So for the F-35, one of the options to explore is reducing the cost, so pursue cost savings. Another option is to decide to spend more, right? Congress could well decide that it's in the national security interest of the country to spend that additional money to sustain the aircraft. Sort of another option is for the department to look at the number of aircraft they plan to purchase, how frequently they plan to fly the aircraft, what levels of readiness they want to attain through the sustainment approach. All three of those pieces will go into developing an affordability strategy that we hope the Pentagon discusses and adopts and implements very, very soon.
One of the recommendations along that line that you make to the Pentagon here is to develop a plan to ensure it can afford to sustain the future F-35 fleet. It just sounds like the numbers are so daunting that you lay out in this work, Diana, that that's going to require a tremendous amount of cooperation on Congress's part to just give the department more money to feed this program. Am I reading something wrong?
Well, I think there's going to be very likely some combination of all three of those things. Some combination of squeezing cost savings out of the current program the way it's structured. Some look at requirements, whether it's buying fewer or taking a hard look at flight hours. And then some combination of potentially paying more for sustainment. Those are policy options. At GAO, we don't take a position on what the specific path forward is, but we do think it's vitally important that the Pentagon develop an approach and then Congress make its own decisions on the level of funding for the F-35 program. This is the present and the future of combat aviation for this country, and so addressing this affordability issue is vitally important.
Diana Maurer, thanks very much as always. Great to have you back on the program.
Thank you very much.